You're
Hello.
watching Coaching Chats with Marina and Caroline,
I'm Marina Baranowski of the Coaching Marina.
and I am Caroline Day with Safe Data Change. How are you, my friend?
Well, my friend, how are you?
I am so excited to talk to you about this topic today. I
Yes.
think what we do on a day to day, right? Like our lives are now really involved in helping people understand themselves. And so understanding me is really a big part of how are we going to help others is by really understanding ourselves, right? And so we help ourselves and we help other people, and that's amazing. So I know that before we started, you were talking about you. So I would love for you to share with our audience about your, and what has happened in the last year for you, because I think it's beautiful and
Oh,
transformative. And I feel like some people will get inspired by your story. So tell
I
us.
appreciate. So we'll start off with just the that nagging a year ago, that nagging. I need to do something. I feel called to serve. I feel called to help people, not understanding and knowing where to go with it. But I took these giant leaps of faith and I decided to become a life coach, which believe me is a shock to me. So I was like, okay, let's do this. In the learning, in the just in embodying what it is to be a life coach, I have learned so much about me. This understanding of me and how I operate and how I work and um just understanding the thoughts and patterns and just being able to move through life has changed dramatically in how I deal with myself.
Can we go
Over
back just a little bit, just because
I
you said so much
you
already?
drive this. You tell me where you want me to go here.
Well, I love because you have like these very powerful sentences, and I'm like, okay, hold on, this was big. You said, that you didn't see yourself being a coach. So for those who haven't seen other videos, like what were you doing before, and how did that come about?
Okay, so quickly, basically, I was in the finance industry. I was in the mortgage industry, very analytical, very non, non, I don't know. Basically, it was something to make money. It wasn't something that was uh,
Wasn't spiritual.
not spiritual, not aligned to me at all. This was just a
Not on
money-driven way.
personal development. Yep.
Totally not. Okay. So with that being said, I just kept doing it because it was something that I used to do. It was like an autopilot kind of situation. Massive things happening, layoffs were happening. I just kept going into trying to get in back into the business, and just the universe, God was like, no, sorry, this is not where you're supposed to be. You need to start thinking, and you start thinking hard about what it is that you really should be doing. Yes. So this is where the understanding me part of this story begins. I
Yeah.
had
Again,
to,
would you say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no.
would you say that it started with misalignment, you understanding that you were in a career that was not aligned with your values? You were there for a purpose, obviously. That was, monetary reasons, financial security related to it, but it wasn't aligned with other values that you had because you were primarily focusing or you're prioritized at the moment, like many of us, on the financial security part. Would you say that?
I would say that. And is when you say values, I don't even know if I had values that
Mm.
I didn't assess it. There was no assessment of what those were. It was just again going off of what we were supposed to do. What you're supposed to do. You're supposed to work, you're supposed to make money, you're supposed to have kids, you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to have a house, you're supposed to like these are all the supposed to's instead of like what is really aligned to me and what I really wanted to do in life, what was going to give me peace, what was going to give me that I'm doing the right thing feeling. And
Mm.
that was disrupted. So where would you like me to go next? Because
No,
I
this
could
was good.
expand.
That kind of explained, right? Like, so
Yeah,
that's it all starts with us realizing at some point that we're not in alignment. Even though alignment, sometimes people don't understand what that
they
word
don't know,
means,
right?
right? And so it was great for you to explain that, you were doing something because somebody told you to do it. So our conditioning, our life conditioning sometimes will guide us into what we wanted, right? Or what we think we want.
Right.
We were born into a family that will kind of shape a lot of that, right? Either people, we have a lot of people whose parents will say, oh, you're going to be a doctor like us, or you're going to go into finance like us, and that kind of already shapes that person's upbringing without them really realizing what it is that they want, because they don't know their values yet. Like you said, I didn't know my values, but you did feel that it was not right for you. And like you said the universe said, no, 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 that's not gonna work for you. So what does that actually means in your day to day? Does it mean
My
that you
day to
didn't get a
day
job?
is no matter how much I tried, I couldn't get a job. No matter how much the people I've contacted, basically there wasn't an opportunity. The opportunities weren't there for me. And that was by design. So instead of looking at it as my own failure, I looked at it like, okay, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe there's another path here. It was a very small, simple, like little hint in my head, but it was something that I felt compelled to explore.
Okay, so how did you find coaching?
How I found coaching was in doing my own search for answers, books, podcasts, just hearing people speak. I was able to stumble upon Jay Shetty and in his podcast, and he had a few guests, and just in hearing his tenor and how he just provided space for someone to speak, I felt very like, oh, that's, oh my gosh, I just, to feel that sense of, I can speak to this person. I felt like, yes, I could do that. I can hold space for someone. I can hold um, attention. I could support someone as they're speaking in the same way that Jay does. So I started seeking his school. Um, that's how I
Yeah,
found him. Yeah.
I love it. I love it because obviously we all, happened in different ways, but that's how we found ourselves, right? Like that's how
Mhm.
we met. We met through the Jay Shetty Certification
True.
School. And then you said once you started, what was your path to understanding who you are today?
It was deepening my understanding of self. It was deepening my awareness of every layer around me because life is so multi-layered, and I needed to understand. I was on a search for myself. I was searching for myself, searching for understanding, searching for, why the people around me do what they do, or, why is my world the way that it is? Why I just needed to know why. So, in trying to find and understand each layer that is comprised of my life, I'm at the center.
Mm,
So, I needed to start with me. And that's when I started to ask some serious questions to myself.
yeah. And so I know began by working with your generation,
Yes.
right? And then how did you narrow that down to what's going on today?
Oh, yes. So, I started in being called to help me, people like me in my way of thinking and my way of moving through this earth. And I hit a point where just not quite aligned. Like I'm aligned to it, but I felt like I there was something underneath that too. So yeah, I had to peel back that layer. And after listening to you and after, just really sitting with myself for some bit, I was in a meditation and I just spent really quiet. and I asked the question, where am I off? Where am I? Where is my next step? Where am I moving towards? And the word crossroad came to me. And so I started gearing my whole space as a coach to people who are hitting that point when you hit a crossroads, when you don't know where to go next, where you're standing at a point and you've got a couple roads ahead of you and you just really don't know where to go. You need to sit with it. And I can sit with you with it because I have been at that point countless times in my life, countless. And
Mm,
so um it was important to me to start with me. This is where it comes in. So I always start with me first. And when I was at that crossroad, right? I was like, something's not quite there, quite aligned. Something is really not feeling all 100% here. Where is that? I had to start with me. So sitting with me, understanding me, what I was feeling at that moment.
yeah. And a lot of people can probably relate to that. Thank you for sharing your story
Welcome.
because I can see a lot of people doing that. My work is very similar in many ways, right? Because it is in a point where people are confused and they need to discover themselves before they move forward.
Yeah,
And with the Jay Shetty Certification School, we actually do get to learn a few tools that we can use in order to help other people. But because we do have these tools, we can actually use it on ourselves. And
absolutely.
one of the first things that we do is, help the person identify where they are. So in order for you to understand yourself, you need to understand where you are in your entirety, right? So we look at all areas in your life. We look at your career, your romantic life, your personal development, your environment, what are your health, where are you in your health, and then we kind of like gauge where you are now, and then we project it further to see where you want to be so you can go forward. But I do want to, before we go into this, I want to talk about this exercise that you did to yourself, that I feel like sometimes it's very powerful for people that are already doing this kind of work. And let's talk about first one tool that you're mentioning here, which is to stop and ask yourself a question.
Yeah.
Because anybody who finds themselves at a crossroads, they're able to do that, right?
Yeah.
To really go within, take a deep breath, and ask yourself this question. Like, what is it that I'm missing? Like, what was your question specifically? Like, did you have a specific question?
What am I feeling right now? What am I, and we're talking just like picking a word.
Yeah.
Am I calm? Am I, anxious? Am I curious? Am I heavy? Do I feel heavy? Do I feel irritated? Like, where am I at? And
Mhm.
just starting and then asking why. So following the thread as to
Yeah.
where I am. And you could do that daily. That doesn't you don't have to wait until you're at a crossroad moment. You could do that daily.
Right.
But at this particular moment it was like that nagging little something something's not quite right. Okay? So I'm like, all right, if something's not quite right, I need to sit with myself and I need to ask that question. What's not right?
Yeah.
Where am I missing it? How am I feeling? And
And
that's where
that's
I start.
beautiful because you are very intuitive. I feel like you're very close to your intuition,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of people that are not, right? That they find themselves not listening to anything or not getting this answer. They find themselves confused and they don't see an answer. They really find themselves stuck, confused, troubled, or what have you. And I think what we learned, through the Jay Shetty certification school, to do this first assessment of life to understand what the person is, right? Because it's not just about where you're going and setting up a goal. It's really about identifying your values.
Yeah.
And you were saying to me earlier that I didn't even know what values were, or I didn't know
Let me
to identify these values first. So how did that come about with you?
there's a flow and a process to this. Once you become aware of yourself, how you're feeling, how your body feels, like once you become aware of everything, the next step is beginning to learn how to trust your own guidance. And I know you had mentioned the intuition. Intuition is a muscle. It takes practice and recognition of it. So if you, everyone's got that that people say the gut feeling. I have a gut feeling that I have my gut's telling me not to do this. That's that's like an indication that you have some sort of intuition. And everyone has this. It's just a muscle. And I have spent years in developing that intuition because I needed it for myself. This is my own system that allows me to understand me better and to understand where I need to be going better. So this is, and again, it's practice. But the next piece of it, again, is starting to trust that self, that nag, that gut feeling. Once you trust that there's something there that needs to be um, explored, the next step for that is clarifying it, right? So clarifying what your values are, clarifying what it is that you want out of life, what you value in life.
Yeah.
That's what I had to understand. What is it that is of value to me? And once you have set that, and you could start with one or two things. It could be I value my time, with my husband. I value the time with my children. I value, my relationship with my parents. You just start peeling with just like one or two things, and you can build on that. Um, Once you realize and kind of flesh out what your values are, it is allows you to now move forward and go, well, I value this. So if there's something that I'm doing moving forward that is going to challenge my value of those things, then I'm not going to do it. So you're constantly going back and forth on this flow. But let's talk about values and how you define values because I'm
Yeah.
interested. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Values are extremely important because it really dictates even your identity,
Yeah.
how you identify yourself as who you are, right? Those are your values. Normally, when we ask somebody, who are you? Tell me a little bit about yourself. The first thing that is going to come out are their values. They're either going to say, I'm an engineer because they value maybe education. I'm a mother. They value family. I'm religious or not religious. They value that part of their lives. I play sports. It'll value that part of their lives. And so your identity is really going to kind of show you who you are. But further out, the really good point about doing an assessment or a life assessment is because you discover other values that you don't talk about, like freedom, like respect. And sometimes you learn your values the hard way. And I feel like I learned a lot of my values the hard way because early on I have decided on the career that I wanted. Because I liked math and science. I liked math and science, therefore I wanted to become an engineer. And then when I was in first year of high school, my teacher said, "Don't be an engineer, be a chemical engineer. You can do a lot more with this major." And so I went right in. And I never wanted to make any pharmaceutical drugs. I never wanted to make polymers or materials or anything that a chemical engineer would like to. It wasn't aligned with what I wanted to do, but it was something that I heard. And every time I said, I'm an engineer or I'm going to school for chemical engineer, I would hear people say, "Wow, That's amazing. You must be really smart. And guess what? It wasn't aligned to me what the career was, but it was aligned to me what I was receiving from people. So
Yeah.
I wanted the recognition. So the recognition was important for me
The
to learn
recognition was the value.
the
That's the value.
recognition was not necessarily what I was doing. And so I just went with it because obviously I wanted to be smart in other people's eyes. I wanted to look intelligent. And then I went into a company, that it was a very big pharmaceutical company. And every time that I will tell people, oh, I work at this place, they will say the same things. Wow, you must be really smart. And so all of these, like, observations from other people validated what I wanted, even though what I was actually doing was not validating who I wanted to be and who I was.
Right.
And so it was driving me further and further and further away from who I am because I was so attached to the recognition. And so I had to do work on myself and learn, why am I suffering? I am getting the job. I am getting the salary that I thought would be, amazing if I got to this point. And it still didn't fulfill me because it wasn't aligned with my values. So value is so important because when you're deviating from it and you're misaligned, even though you're successful in other people's eyes, or even for yourself, you can see it's a successful thing to accomplish, it still doesn't feel good inside. And so that's kind of like your compass.
Yes.
You really learn if it works for you or not because you feel it in your heart if it is something that you want to continue to do. But if you're in the position where you're constantly going, I'm really good at this, but I don't really like it.
Yeah. Just
I
because
know
you're good
everything
at
about
it, just
it.
because you're good at it doesn't mean that you should be doing it.
Exactly. And so a lot of people do that. I can totally see how people relate to this. And I have talked to clients where they found themselves in the same situation where, they are really good at what they're doing. But if you ask them, what do you really like to do? What was something that if you didn't have to worry about money at all, and you didn't have to worry about anything, and you just did what your heart desired, where would you go into? And they would say something completely different than what they're doing right now. And I mean completely different, right? And what people don't realize is they have also these, not only these identities about themselves, but they also have these beliefs about what they like and what they don't like. I like this, but this doesn't bring me money, or this doesn't bring me this. Well, let's look at your values. It seems like you value what you like, but you value financial security more. Is that true? Like, so you can actually learn because financial security is something that it's of value, right? People do value that, and people do want to be able to make money to provide for their families. So it's
Our
their
society is
opinion is
set up
value.
like that. I mean, let's be real here. Our society is set up that you need to make money in order to live, and it's just the name of the game right now, unfortunately.
Oh, fortunately. No, that's actually fortunate, right? Because it's a good thing that you have to make money. And with money, you're not only able to provide for yourself, but for the people around you. It's just the idea that we have to work on something that is going to provide money as opposed to, something during their path made them believe this is not going to provide me anything, or this is going to make less, or this is going to make me less. And
Right.
so they attach themselves to their beliefs, the belief that this is not as good as the other one.
Right.
I'm not going to be as smart as this other opportunity.
Right.
And I heard it myself, like I've told people that I'm, now a certified life coach, and they go, oh, that's cute.
That's
The same
cute.
people.
That's
And
cute.
And people that, when I said, I'm at this place and I'm an engineer or I'm a safety manager, they're like, wow, that's amazing. Good for you. So there is a difference in receiving, but you're not working for other people. You're working for
Yeah,
yourself.
that's how did you shift your your brain and your wiring when it came to that?
I was always very confident about the things that I was doing. And when I told people that I became a certified coach, I was already in the process, right? I had already done my hours of training. And I was actually utilizing my skills as a professional to do it. And because I had a lot of passion in my heart to help other people, it didn't influence as much as it would have another person, only because I had this inner confidence built
Yeah.
up already. But I did hear it, right? And I know it would hurt other people, if that makes sense. It would hurt other people. It was interesting to hear, but it's not something that I believed. And so for me, it didn't change. What changed for me was the idea that I had about myself. What is going to happen if I leave this identity? Because you do change your identity. But
Yeah.
I was already in the process of changing identities back in 2019 when I was extremely religious and I learned about a God that felt a lot bigger to me. And so I was already in the process of changing identities and what that meant. So that was already really hurtful, to be honest with you. Like the first process of learning my identities and changing my identities, that was more painful than the profession itself, because the profession just felt like an easy part because it was more aligned. The other one, I didn't know what it would mean. And it was the very first change. And so I didn't know what it would mean for me to be so religious and go to church to now I'm more open to accept other ideas. And now I'm able to see other people's points. So I feel like even those early changes that happened in my life helped me in navigating this career now, because who I was before was not going to be able to be open to people. I was never going to be able to give the space that people deserved in my coaching services if I had that mindset that I had before. So my mind really had to open a lot in order for me to become this person that I am today. And I feel very proud because that's the change that happened. It was one after the other. But I know now what my values are, right? And I think that's really important for people. And like you said, when you know what your values are, all of a sudden you're asking yourself, well, if I do that, does that go in accordance to my values? And so it becomes your compass, it becomes how you're going to navigate moving forward. And when you start prioritizing your values completely and intentionally, you start seeing synchronicities, you start seeing changes, you start aligning to people that are really aligned to you. We were talking earlier, like how we found each other, and it was almost like the easiest thing
The
that happened.
easiest thing, easiest, so quick. It was like, yep, okay, we're doing this thing. I mean, it was so quick. And the
Yeah.
thing is like we found something in each other that didn't come from something that was an outside thing. This is an internal, just intuition based flow that we had together. And again, super and incredibly grateful for what we have. Everything that you said absolutely resonates with me. What I found that really changed me at my core and that kind of is projected out is I've been able to eliminate judgment.
Mm.
And being
Tell me
able to eliminate this
how.
from myself first, and again, it always starts with self, and understanding that I didn't want to be judged. So why am I judging everyone else? Just that simple question. I was like, it's not something that I felt good. It's not something that was um it just wasn't me. Being judgmental to other people was not something that I felt good about doing. So why would I be judgmental of everyone else?
That's beautiful. And I I love this conversation with you because we're so different in so many ways. For me, it was just the opposite. I was so judgmental. I judged everything and everyone. I was so judgmental, but I never really stopped and was honest with me. It was the opposite. I was always judging others. And the day that I said, I'm going to stop and I'm going to start judging me, but not in a bad way, I wanted to judge me as who I was being. Like, why are you judging others? What is really going on inside of you? Why do you think everybody should be a certain way and have a certain standard and have this and have that and be this person versus this person? I was extremely judgmental. And then I started a process of judging me. I was like, forget about everybody else. Why are you acting this way? Is this really who you want to be like you, right? But it wasn't like everybody's judging me and then now I'm gonna like see what's going on. It was like I'm judging everybody. I need to see what's going
Two sides of the
on.
coin, but it's the same question. It is the same when you're doing your assessment, when you're trying to understand yourself, you're trying to understand me. Those questions need to be asked. And especially if you are an extremely judgmental person, that is a question. Why am I being judgmental? What is it doing? And you could take that with anything. Why am I upset? Why am I feeling, heavy today? Why am I any and all emotion that you're having? By asking yourself that question, you can start to understand you more. But judgment is a huge, huge one that, I'm super happy that I was able to come away from and understand that it's not even part of my thing anymore.
That's beautiful. I also went from, because I was judging everybody, when I found out, I was almost like angry because I feel like when you find out something about yourself and it was very deep for me. It was deeply rooted into my religion, my upbringing, my way of living. And so when I learned that, I felt really angry and upset that I was like that. And I think there was a lot of judgment towards me from you're not like this anymore, which by the way was a coach who told me that. I kept on saying, I'm very this, I'm very that. And she stopped me and she said, you're no longer that. You're now the observer who knows you are like that. And that's huge for
That is
you
a
to understand.
huge shift. What an
Yeah.
incredible perspective shift that coach gave you. That's incredible because it's true. Every little thing that you do, every question that you ask yourself, you're rewiring your brain. And it is an incredible thing to do. And it takes practice and it takes intention for you to want to know about yourself and understand where it comes from. And again, it could be wiring from when you were a kid. It could be wiring from an experience you had. It could have been whatever it is, you can start fresh and retrain your brain on how to handle things. In the example of judgment, and you're in the middle of let's just say a party or something, and then you find yourself people watching, and the next thing you know, you're going, well, that person, I don't like that person's dress, and I don't like that person, the way that they speak. Oh, they smell bad or whatever it is, right? What are you doing that for? To make yourself feel better? And I had to ask myself a lot of those questions when retraining my brain on how to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it comes down to also you understanding, once you understand what you're doing to yourself, and also understanding the power of this is not me anymore, or I can choose differently. I'll give you an example. Um, when I fought with my husband, when I had fights with my husband, it would get heated because I was a yeller. I was always yelling and yelling. And it got to a point where I would, because I was starting to watch myself, I would yell and then I would be like, I need a minute, I'm yelling. Because I would see myself yelling. It's not like I was able to stop before it happened, but it happened. And then I saw it and I would say, I would have to remove myself immediately. I'm yelling and I don't want to yell. And then I would go back to him and say, I don't want to yell anymore. This is not who I am anymore. When I start yelling, I need you to help work with me and help me because I don't want to yell. Point it out to me that I'm yelling and that you don't want to talk to me anymore. And I remember when I told him that, and he said, wow, I don't know who you are, but I like you, because it was such a change in our relationship. And the more I did this, it just kind of stopped
Right.
because the more I did this, then the less yelling to no yelling, which
No.
is crazy because every time I was upset, it would be like yelling. But I grew up with yelling in my life, in my household. It was like a yelling, battle. And I was like, I don't want this anymore. And I couldn't stop for a long time. Even when I said I don't want to do it anymore, I still did it. And then I was like, dang it, I did it again. And then it would happen. And then I start catching in the middle of it. And then now I don't catch it at all.
Yeah.
Now, when I feel like I'm going to yell, I'm like, I need a minute because I'm going to yell at you.
Oh,
I
it's so
need a minute.
beautiful.
And
Because you
so I think,
retrained, it took some time, but you retrained your
oh,
brain.
it took
And
so long.
within that self-awareness and understanding yourself, I'm a yeller. So I'm going to do everything I can to not be that because it's not something that I value and not something that I like about myself.
Well, actually, that was not it. You have to first separate what you're doing from you.
Yeah.
And you're right. At first, you call yourself that. You don't say I yell, you say I'm a yeller,
Yeah.
right? And so when you're doing that, you're super attached to what's happening. You have to separate that. I'm not a yeller. I'm
Right.
doing yelling and I don't like the yelling. I'm not a yeller. I'm not what I'm doing. I am me. And this is what I'm doing. I don't like what I'm doing and I'm able to change. And I feel like that is actually really good tool for people to
So good.
learn instead of saying, "Oh, I'm not a reader." They attach themselves to what they are doing. It's that actually makes it harder for you to separate because it's part of your identity. But if you stop saying I'm not a reader and say I don't enjoy reading, but that's not me. I can change that. But
Yeah.
right now I don't enjoy reading. Right now I don't enjoy yelling. I'm not a yeller. I just don't like yelling. That's how you can change when you separate it from your.
Yeah. Thank you for that. That is a huge point. That's so beautiful because you're right. You say I'm a yeller versus, I'm yelling. So the action in itself is not you.
No.
Beautiful. Beautiful reframe.
Yeah. And so how about you? Do you know, for example, now what would be like your four top values? What do you value, Marina?
I value time so much, so much. I value every second. And where before I was always looking towards the future of things, I can't wait until I get to this, or I can't wait till this happens, or when this, I'm always looking in the future instead of looking in the now. So I value time incredibly.
But hold on, both of them are time. So the time that you're waiting and the time that you are now, they're all time. So when
It's
you
the
say I
now
value
time.
time, okay. I
It's the
just
now
wanted to,
time.
okay. So
Okay,
you
thank you.
value
It's the now
process.
time. Yeah. No, I like the now time. I like every moment. I like being here with you at this moment. I'm not thinking about, later on. I'm thinking right now because right now is such a beautiful experience for me, and
Mhm.
instead of looking back on it, or looking, I want to be right here, right now because I don't
So
know
for
what happens. So that's something that I had to change my thought pattern and value more of. Um, there's so many values that I have, but I would say that the top is I value my ability to have relationships now that are rich, that aren't surface level, that I can have, a relationship with my husband, with my children, with the people around me that are so much more meaningful because I have been able to look at it in such a way. They may not look at it in the same way, and that doesn't matter. What matters is that I can look at my relationships and have such a value and gratefulness when it comes to it. Um, gosh, I value my spirituality in a way that I've never been able to embrace before. I am spirituality in itself is so huge and encompassing. I know we spoke about it before, it's the universe and God is just so expansive. And I have been able to settle into it and know that I'm a part of this, and just being super incredibly, amazingly grateful for being and having, this life experience. And 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 everything else is I guess it's just presence. I'm grateful for presence.
That's beautiful. That's a very good value to have. Um, to be present, to feel connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel more like when you said it, I feel more like deep connections versus
Deep,
like relationships. I
deep.
value deep connections. I value presence, not so much time because the others, like time could be time that you're waiting, time that you're expecting.
Yeah.
Time is so big, but
Less
you
so,
value
more in the today.
the now. You value the now, the presence. You value deep connections. And what was the third? You value spirituality and
Yeah.
your spirituality. That's beautiful. Yeah, I think I value family. I really do. I value the love that I have. Loving. I
Yeah,
value
you
love.
do.
And I think my spirituality is connected to this love that I have. I think I have love because of my spirituality. So it's all in love. So I value family, love. I value freedom, financial freedom, all the freedoms, time freedom to do me time. I really value freedom, freedom to express, and I value learning. It's something that I love to do. I'm constantly either reading or learning or participating in something, and I love learning and teaching. So those are definitely my values. I can do it. Nobody needs to motivate me. Let's talk about this too, right? So you know what your values are when you need no motivation. Nobody needs to wake me up to go learn something. Nobody needs to motivate me to love anyone,
Yeah.
or especially my family. Nobody needs to motivate me to care about my family. You know what I mean? So you would know what your values are when nobody needs to say, hey, you're going to need to do this. If you need to go do this and somebody needs to tell you and you're not excited to do it, it's not your values. So you know it's your value when it's aligned to your heart and you're excited, like you
Oh,
feel excited.
beautiful. So, because we're this episode is understanding me, can we maybe give our listeners like, some practical, possibilities on how to start understanding themselves better?
Oh, absolutely. I think the best thing for them to do is to pause, take a deep breath, and just get a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen and just write down the things that they love the most in their lives. What
Beautiful.
do they love the most? Maybe it's, their dog, maybe it's their house, maybe it's, the sports that they do, whatever it is, what do you love the most? And start there. How can I do more of what I love? Because those are very connected to your values. Before we end, I do want to talk about my webinar, my free webinar that is coming up. So on February 6th, it's going to be a Friday. It's in about 2 weeks. I'm going to be offering a free webinar, and it's titled Stop Living at War with Yourself. Because at some point in my life, I was living at war with myself, and I had to learn and I had to develop tools to now help other people learn how to stop living at war with themselves. So if they feel misaligned, this is a great opportunity for them to learn. I'm going to walk through 4 questions that you can ask yourself to get answers, to get more alignment, and design your goals based on your values. And I am so excited to do that. It's going to be 1 hour via Zoom. I'm going to have probably the link on this episode so that if people want to join, they're free to join. And I think it's going to be very helpful because sometimes people do not know what questions to ask in order to get more alignment. But learn what you love first to start there.
Thank you so much for that. I'm so excited for that. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna join it because I want to know.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was great, of course. I love
Yeah.
you, your energy. Thank you for for teaching us how you changed and how you happen to understand yourself. I know this is so short. I know we too learned a lot throughout our lives and how it helped us. I think coaching really helped us both understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And because we have these coaching chats, we get to learn from each other and also take our lessons and continue to walk through the path that most align with us. And I think that that's amazing. I'm so grateful.
I'm so grateful. You are an absolute delight. I can't say that you are so delightful.
So are you. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good week. Bye.